Wasn't that phenomenal? Don't you feel relaxed, focused, grounded, ready for a phenomenal conversation? You ready? All right. So, without further ado, we will begin our day. So let's get this party started. The world is becoming more artificial every day, whether it's a video conference instead of a face-to-face morning meeting, or entire news articles written by artificial intelligence. The idea of leadership and what it is to lead has to change along with it. Joining us to discuss is someone who's been leading the way all of her life, one of the most interesting, inspiring, and visionary leaders of our time. We've been honored to have her on our stage before, and we couldn't be more proud to have her back at FTF this year. Introducing Angela Ahrendts, DBE. Angela is the chair of Save the Children International, the former CEO of Burberry, and former senior vice president of Apple Retail. She'll be joined by executive vice president of Forbes, Moira Forbes. Please welcome them to the stage. Thank you, ladies.
As we're, well, there we go. Start again. I was saying that I'm excited for this conversation because as we're going through this time of blistering change and transformation, and really with AI at the forefront of that, what are the new dimensions of leadership that are required? What are the fundamentals that we need to be thinking about at a time, I think, where so many of us see AI as replacing aspects of leadership when really it's an opportunity to enhance it and think about it in different ways. So Angela's going to share her perspectives on what it means to be a leader. How do we adapt personally and within our organizations to capitalize not just on the opportunities this moment presents, but to be able to manage this disruption in more effective ways, and perspectives also on how do you actually think about this in our day-to-day lives and think about AI as this force that will be so transformative and really important in all that we do. So Angela, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here with me.
I want to start off because I was really struck in our prep call last week when you said that you believe that 2023 will be the most transformative year to date in human history. Mm-hmm. Tell us why.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons. And, I love the old Steve Jobs quote, right? And it is, care in this room, I'm facing one way, and I feel like I have my back to you. I'm so sorry. But, when Steve launched the iPhone in 2007, and he opted to launch it direct to consumer. And what came out of that, we all take for granted, all the social media, all the online, everything from 07. So everyone says 07 was one of the most innovative, disruptive years and everything that came from that. So now chat and OpenAI, it's once again been launched direct to consumer. So we've got the devices, now we've got AI, so the acceleration and the pace of change and what will spawn from this, not dissimilar that everything came from the iPhone, we can't even fathom right now all of the innovations that will come from this. And I think that's the incredible opportunity blessing. But I think the concern is, I love Thomas Friedman's book, Thank You for Being Late. And he talked about how 07 caused such a dislocation because individuals were able to get ahead of institutions. And whether that's government or educational or commercial institutions, nobody was keeping pace. I mean, a couple of companies like Burberry, but because you have to pivot. You have to put a different lens on everything that you do. And so So I believe in the next 5-10 years, we will look back and talk about 2023 exactly like we talk about '07 now. And I think that we have to be open, we have to be flexible, because the innovations are going to be unlike anything we've ever seen.
But being open and being flexible is so much easier said than done. The simple things in life are the hardest to actually practice and put to work. I want to talk about what it means as individuals and leaders in terms of the types of skill sets that we need to adapt or evolve or prioritize to be able to navigate this really uncertain but exciting frontier. One of the things that's been a hallmark of your career is that you're both a right brain and a left brain leader, in the sense that left brain analytical types of skills, but also that creative force as well. Can you share how you see that leadership dynamic and how those skill sets are evolving in terms of what we need to lean into in this new age?
Yeah, I think it's going to flip leadership on its head. And I would actually like even go back a little bit. And I think the world that was spawned from the iPhone, right? This Instagram, YouTube, WeChat, WeWork world, that leadership hasn't even caught up with that yet. Right, and how to lead the next generation who's living and growing up there. I don't think an average institution, again, government, educational, or commercial, has even caught up. Now let's rapidly go further. And again, now every individual is more empowered, they're smarter. So how do leaders need to evolve? And maybe leadership is no longer about top down. Maybe leadership's about bottoms up. And maybe with the answers already in OpenAI, it's not about the answer, it's about asking the right questions, right? Where leaders think they have to have the answers. And so I think these are the types of things that are just going to be flipped upside down. And I think probably the most important part is the whole organizational evolution that's going to have to take place. And I think that I think finally, once and for all, we're going to lean on the creatives to look ahead and to run things in an AI world. And I don't care if that's in creative marketing and creative product design, but creatives need to have a seat at the table. And we've already been experimenting this. There's an incredible ad agency called WPP that I happen to be on the board of. And Mark Reed, the CEO, a year ago hired a chief creative officer to be by his side because he said, we want to be a creative transformation company. What big portfolio companies like that, put as much emphasis on a chief creative as they do a CFO? And now what they're doing is in every one of their divisions, they're either putting the chief creative as the CEO or that CEO is hiring a chief creative by their side. And I think that's going to be imperative in every institution. Because in a world of AI, it is the creatives who feel, who connect dots, who look around corners, who have the passion, the instincts, the empathy, but the creative thinking. And most important, the courage to stand up. I don't care if it's a cancel culture society. The creatives have the courage to stand up for what they believe. So I think reorging and elevating or bringing in, I think it's a critical component of leadership going forward.
So if we're seeing this real shift to put creative at the forefront, the types of skills and opportunities it brings to an organization, I would imagine also, though, it's incumbent on those who aren't necessarily traditionally creatives to really understand what that means. What are these dimensions of leadership that we see maybe in sort of more traditionally in creative forces within our organizations that we need to be bringing to the forefront of our own lives personally and within our businesses?
Yeah, and I think they're more qualitative attributes than quantitative attributes. And so that's why maybe they're a little harder to define. But I think, again, and to me, just make the assumption, like right now, because, again, AI's been around for 20, 25 years. It's the large language models. It's just now this is the year where it's all come together. And so it's always been there, but have we optimized it? And so I just think, and I think the greatest news of all, I'm not afraid of it. There will be bad things that happen with AI, just like there's a dark web. But luckily, 80% of the people don't go to the dark web. We live on the good web. And so the same thing will happen in AI. We know that. It's going to be abused. There's going to be bad things. But hopefully, 80% will be great things that just jettison humankind. But I think it's those key attributes that humans have. We have gifts. We are born with incredible instincts. Read Yuval's Homo sapiens. I mean, how we survived. You know, we weren't born to survive alone. We are a community, a collective of people. And we've got these instincts. We've got creative thinking. And to me, the tragedy is we still live in the industrial age. It took a pandemic to get rid of shifts, 9 to 5, you know. I mean, it took a pandemic to get working into the digital age. And so, you know, and think of all the money that's going in to OpenAI. You know, I challenge Satella. I challenge Microsoft. Put 10 billion, just like you put into AI, put 10 billion in creating a curriculum to educate us on how to use our instincts. There's not a lower ed or higher ed. You know, there was Stanford Design Thinking. You know, Jimmy Iovine and Dre have opened up at USC. Intercurricular, you know, they're trying to unlock it, put 70 million towards it. But it is so big, and humans are so behind. And so I think we have to invest as leaders in our own company. I think we have to invest as much as we're putting into technology. I think we have to invest as much in humans and what we're doing to evolve our thinking and unlocking, because we're behind, because things haven't evolved. It's back to that. So I think it's our God-given attributes. It is our instinct. It is our empathy. AI doesn't feel. It is our creative thinking and solving, and it'll take the data that's there, but it doesn't have the gifts that we have. So we need to be an incredible complement to it, with it, and bring in the new minds and the new way of thinking. And I go back to passion. AI doesn't have passion. It can use passionate words. But we have passion, we have empathy, we have courage, which we've all, you know, kind of parked a little bit, but I think it's going to be incredibly needed. And again, they're very qualitative attributes, but I think they're human attributes that we need to amplify in an artificial world.
So what you're saying, which I think is really interesting, is what it means to be human has never been more powerful.
I love that.
It is also sort of a moment in time where that is also the hardest thing for us to culture and nurture and educate around. So there is this paradox or this tension that exists. And so often we're taught to value thinking over feeling. Can you share how you've learned to balance or think about those sometimes competing forces, particularly when we have more data than ever before that may cloud our thinking? We have this sort of legacy bias against thinking over feeling, but if feeling needs to be at the forefront, are there things that each of us can do to better understand where and how to lean in our own lives?
Yeah, it's an incredible question. And it's funny, the thinking over feeling brings back my TED Talk. That was, and I questioned in my TED Talk why thinking is the currency over feeling, because when you think, it only gives you the probabilities, where when you feel and you dream, then it opens up the possibilities, and so it's. This is going to be like. I don't believe, and this is bad maybe, but I don't believe you can teach old dogs new tricks. And I'm an old dog, so I can say that. But I think it's so important, and I've learned this, right? I've learned to be a node. I've learned to be the enabler, to be the connector, not to be the big boss who knows it all. And so I think that with me, and no different than at Burberry, right? Okay, they credit myself or Christopher. I will tell you, it was this little group called the Innovation Council. And it was 20 of 20-year-olds right out of college. They were young, and they worked and worked and worked together, and they came up with all the innovative things that we did. They brought it up to the exec council, because otherwise, if they would have done it individually, all the really smart people would have said no. Right? And so they came up, they put the business plan, they reported into Christopher, they would formulate that, and then they would bring it back to the exec council, which reported into me, and I would say, yes. And so all of that innovation had nothing to do with all the really smart people. It had to do with the young digital natives that we brought into the company to keep us on the forefront. No different, you go to Apple. There's 55,000 kids around the world. I know nothing about the company, about technology, but I'm smart enough to ask them because they had such huge tenure. So I had to bring in a little company, and we crowdsourced with 55,000 people around and said, what do you think Apple should be doing more of in your community? And it had a multiplier effect because they were now a part of creating the strategy. I think it was like the largest internal crowdsourcing exercise. It took 6 months to do. But the entire Today at Apple in-store experience concept came from the field, came from 55,000 creating it. And so to me, leadership has to evolve. You as a leader have to evolve. It's too big, it's too fast. And again, every individual, the next generation you're bringing in, they're already smarter than all the older people you have. They've already downloaded ChatGPT, over 300 million of them. So they have it, they're using it, so you need to use them. You need to unlock the digital natives, unlock the creatives. And so to me, what kind of a leader do you want to be? I prefer to be an enabler. I prefer to be a connector. I prefer to...
I want to drill down on that really quickly. You talked earlier about the fact that the hierarchy of organizations has to change. Top down no longer works. Bottom up is sort of something new for a lot of organizations. What's the job description of a leader today?
Listener, educator. You have to listen. And you have to listen inside, you have to listen outside, you have to listen to your kids, you have to listen to anybody who falls into your life, because I don't believe anything's a coincidence or an accident. And so I think listener will be the most powerful. Well, again, leaders think they're supposed to know, and they're supposed to talk, and so I think listener, educator, and if you want to be an educator, then you better stay curious. And you better be a lifelong learner, and you better just, and then the more you read, the more you've got this database, so your instincts are empowered, right? Then you can connect the dots, then you can feel, and you can, so that's all that instincts are. We're born with them, right? But it's no different than a large language model in AI. They're feeding that thing with constant data. Are you feeding yourself with as much data?
I love that, the AI, right, of your human intuition and your gut. Are you ensuring that you're having the inputs in a meaningful way? I want to switch gears a little bit, because when we're talking about the stakeholders that are so important in these conversations, we've talked about it primarily within the constructs of organizations and businesses, but they don't operate in isolation. We are operating in communities this responsibility that business now has, and the stakeholder responsibility to be a much more powerful force for good, to bring the humanity of business inside, but also to communities or issues that we value. Can you talk about why you see that as so fundamental? And again, 5 years from now, what looks different?
She didn't give me these questions on the prep call. These are hard. I think the great thing, and Karen definitely ordered these chairs for her. I feel like opposite of Edith Ann. The great thing, I think the greatest opportunity of all, and this is just connecting dots again, is with the timing of AI, I think you also have massive opportunity in timing with what I call the S in ESG. Like, we've killed the E. Not that we're doing it, but everybody knows what they need to do, and they know what they need to report, and they know what the bigger impact will be. But S, we've gone a little bit on gender and a little bit on diversity and inclusion, and we're doing a good job. But I think, to your point, S is so much bigger than that, right? And what should every company, every institution in the world, I almost want to say, be forced to report on under the S? You know, and you can call me a dreamer, but there's 300,000 layoffs in the valley where I live right now. And it drives me crazy. Someday I want a CEO to have the courage to say, I am not, my profits will be down 2% for the next 2 years because I'm not going to lay off anybody, because I feel responsible. And they would report that under the S. They would report how many people they kept when otherwise they could have laid off, how many they promoted, how many, it's like Karen said at the beginning, we're in the people business. It's not just the people in your company. Everybody in your company has a whole community that they also impact, and livelihoods, et cetera. So we're actually partnering right now with a huge consulting firm and through Save the Children, because we talk to donors and we talk to people and you talk about it and nobody, so what is that framework? So this large consulting firm is doing all the research all over the world, what exists, and they're going to come back in the next couple of months and recommend what this reporting framework should be. Social responsibility. Yes, it's diversity, inclusion, everything we're doing now, but it's so much bigger. There's so much more. And again, as AI disrupts, as it changes everything, what is our social responsibility? What is our human responsibility in this new world that we're creating? And we took... Oh, I have my light on. I must be ready to take a picture of you, sorry. and again, we tried a little bit of it at Apple. I mean, in Apple retail, by the time I left, we had 70,000 employees around the world. It was like 60% of Apple's workforce. And they were vested. We had a 92% retention rate in retail because it was theirs. They owned it. And we loved the feedback. So we actually wrote the first human responsibility report. The company had an environmental report, a supplier report, but we're in the human business. Let's talk about, what is the responsibility for, and I would also hold Apple up. Apple has not announced a single layoff, and I think that's amazing.
It's interesting that you talk about sort of really drilling down and measuring this S, because earlier we're essentially saying that how we define and measure human intelligence is evolving, right, in terms of what we're prioritizing or what constitutes intelligence versus how we've seen it previously, and also redefining and how we measure success and impact within organizations in ways that are really very challenging and require a few brave companies to really be at the forefront of this.
Because they won't evolve otherwise. Nobody willingly went into the environmental reporting, right? That kind of had to be a real pull. And so I think you've got to have that same pull in the S.
As we wrap up, two quick questions for you. We have an extraordinary group of leaders in this room who are connected to amazing communities personally and in business and in life. What's one message you want them to take about this intersection of AI and leadership to the people that they're engaging with in their lives?
Mm-hmm. It's funny, again, when we wanted to turn Burberry around, we said that it started every conversation that we would be digitally led. That was the lens that we put everything through. And everything, every conversation we had. And I would leave here and go back to your company or your organization, and I would challenge you and everybody on your executive team to say, to use AI as your new lens. And I guess what I mean by that too is, again, when Google and when Facebook and everything came out, right? Every company was loading their stuff. Are you loading your stuff in chat for your company? So if I ask ChatGPT a question, what does it say on your company? Right? I mean, it's like, and you can do that. But you got to have an AI lens. And you have to make an assumption that every young person you hire is ahead of you. and they're already using it. I mean, Stanford and Berkeley, these universities, guys, are going back to pen and paper because they can't let them use their devices anymore because they'll use chat to take tests, et cetera. So just assume everybody you're bringing in. So if you don't have an AI lens or that assumption on everything and how it's going to impact every department and every facet and in every meeting, ask that question, then I just think you're going to fall further and further and further behind because, again, go back to where we started. You don't know the innovations that are going to keep coming out. There are supposedly 1,000 startups already in the Valley doing apps and unique things that are all pivoting off of AI. And it's going to be so exponential that if you don't start now, you just won't. You will get so behind in the race that, and so I just, as leaders, have a new lens.
I love that. I love the intentionality and the way in which these small things or different ways to look at our day-to-day can have such a transformative impact. Well, Angela, thank you so much for these insights. Truly incredible. And I think a lot of us have very powerful things to be muddling and thinking about in our own lives. And you've been such a visionary and steadfast in this commitment to these issues. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
We may have to help each other.
I know. Let me go off that way. Yeah.